Hello and welcome to this series of high performance workflows brought to you by Hudl. My name is Ed Sully and I'm the Director of Customer Solutions. In this episode, we're going to take a deeper dive into team identity and game model and the role that plays into building successful high performance. At Hudl, we've invested heavily in high performance workflows. As shown on the screen here, that transcends across different areas, including the team identity and game model we'll spend more time on today, the stadium and infrastructure, the scouting and recruitment processes, the pre-live and post-match analysis processes, and the team monitoring. Also, what's important here in terms of an investment is our shift into human performance. So that gets deeper into performance development programs, screening and assessments, frequency and load management, and injury rehab and rehabilitation, and of course, the importance of recovery. And today we're going to dive deeper into the team identity and game model. So firstly, what I'd ask you to think about as you watch this video is to reflect and think about how you would define a high performance workflow and what that is to you and your organization. Often from the thousands of interactions we have with our customers every year, plus our own experiences of working high performance workflows, often we land on two main concepts. The first is to generate better insight through better informed, evidence-based decision making. And also the next is time. So quite often in high performance workflows, practitioners such as yourselves and leaders such as yourselves are time poor. You've got a lot of demand on your time and you need to be able to work really efficiently. So there's this direct relationship between insight that you can derive and also the time it takes you to get to that point and then also implement it. So as we go a little deeper here into team identity and game model, there's three main things you need to think about here. First is the why. The team identity and game model is there to capture why your organization exists. It's the why that underpins everything that you do. It's so important that is very clear to you and everybody else in your organization. And the key personas, at least from the sporting side, would be the sporting director, head of recruitment, the scouts, maybe the recruitment analyst, data science, and then also that link into the agents, things like that. So these are key personas as part of the process that you're going to be engaging with. So essentially the whole performance staff, plus some important external factors, including agents. And then ultimately, what we're here to do from Hudl perspective is to offer the ability to deploy efficient workflows and deliver those powerful insights that aid those decisions. That's a big part of our investment, our ethos, and why we link to team identity and game model. So first of all, let's look at this through a lens of high performance processes. So for now, if we park the people involved and the technology involved, which are very important, but we'll bring them in next. First of all, think about the process. And as you'll see in the rest of this series, we have designed a set of processes that reflect the high performance workflows for a set of key workflows, including recruitment, pre-live and post training and matches, and then also post-match reviews and investment into individual development plans, loan player pathways, etc. But every single one of those high performance workflows is underpinned by these three main areas, which we're going to go into in a little bit more detail today. The first is organizational objectives. What is it you're trying to achieve? The second is what it takes to win. And that win is whatever win means in your context. It could be remaining your position in the league. It could be challenging to win trophies. Whatever that conversion to win means, that's the piece for stage two. And then the third part is your team game model. What is the game that you need to play to make the rest of your organization be successful? So let's go a little deeper here. First is the organization objectives. So when you're doing this process, often it's a combination between the commercial side of your organization and your sporting side of your organization. And what you're trying to land on is an agreement around some business assumptions. So on the commercial side, it could be related to fan growth, maybe ticket and revenue from merchandise sales. Whatever they are, there'll be a set of assumption objectives, targets that you're looking to meet. And then on the other side, on the sporting side, it could be examples like I'm showing here on the screen. So in this theoretical example, this is an organization that owns two football teams. They're both based in Europe. And Team A at the top here has three main assumptions that have been made and three main targets that go with them. The assumptions are related to on-pitch performance, play trading, and value creation. And on the right-hand side here, with the targets for the Team A, it is qualifying for the Europa League. It is making profit from player sales in the region of 2 million euros, and also create 4 million euros worth of value in players under the age of 21. So what you can start to see is these are very specific and very orientated around the objectives of the business. And essentially what happens is you play this process out is having alignment from all key leaders, all key stakeholders, and all key practitioners within the process gives everyone a sense of purpose and understanding about these are the objectives we're trying to achieve, this is the things we're working towards. So when they're meeting daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever the cadence is in the organization, these are the things that you're commonly referring back to. And particularly for those leaders that are doing this work, these are the things that you can use to help manage up essentially in terms of constant specific communication. On the right hand side is a theoretical example of, hey, here's an update from November of 2020, here's the outputs. So what you can start to see here is a very simplified version of what your organization objectives are and how do you practically put those in place, including making sure that the rest of the performance team are around this and understand that this is part of what we're trying to achieve, and therefore can design their workflows to benefit and bring this to life and not work against it. The next stage is to think about, well, what does it take to win? Often this can be very quickly overlooked, particularly as the pressure of your current season, wherever that might be and wherever that might run, can often just take over, and this can be overlooked. But it's such a foundational truth that underpins, from a principles perspective, the success of your organization. So as you're going into it, the thing to think about is, what does winning mean in your context? Is it to win a trophy, or is it to win a World Cup, or whatever that might be in your concept? Or actually, is it more to, if it's from a league perspective, surviving the top league in the period that you're in, or is it to get promotion? Whatever that is, once you get that baseline, you can then start to dive deeper into, well, what are the specifics? What historically does the information data tell us is needed? Be that from points required, wins required, clean sheets, expected goal difference, all these elements, wins, etc. So real quite basic information, but these are critical to understand and also to use to try and track the performance, so that when you're then planning the season ahead, you can start to identify where you should be able to get these returns. And that also helps to manage, again, the pressure that is built around you in terms of managing up and sideways in terms of the fans and the pressure that builds. So be able to plan ahead and use what it takes to win as a foundation is absolutely critical as part of the process. And then the next one is the game model. So typically this is built up over four main areas. The first is the vision and philosophy. So taking together the organization objectives, and then the underpinning part of that is, again, why does our organization exist and what is the philosophy we're trying to go towards? So for example, that could be your organization was created in the 1800s to service a local community. And that might still be a big part of why you exist today. So that has to be captured within, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Then we start to get into the specifics of, well, what is the game that we need to play at a team level to live that vision and philosophy? What does that look like? Then you go into the player level. So what are the individual player profiles we need for each of the positions on the field or court or whatever your organization, your sport is playing? Then from there, what are the training methods? What are the training methods that we need to deploy to the players to make sure we can play the game and we can live the vision and philosophy? So that's the relationship there. And we're showing this very much in a circular manner, because that is reflective of the reality here. These things should overlap and they should complement each other. What I'd like you to do as you're listening to this is to think about, in your organization, is this clear? are you very clear about your vision and philosophy, why your organization exists in the first place, what your organization objectives are, what it takes to win is in your context specifically? What is your game model? Is it super clear? Is that broken down into phases? Are there sub principles, etc.? And the same for players. Do you know very clearly all the positions in your sport? Is that been very well defined? Could you repeat it verbatim if you were in an elevator with me? You would be able to tell me straight away what that is at each position. And similarly with the training methods, what are the key core concepts that you're working towards in training? If the answer to that is no, definitely that should be cause for you to take a pause and think about, well, how do we go about correcting that? As we go a little deeper into some examples here from a game model perspective at a very high level, when you're describing the main principles, it could look something like this, where you've got your organization in the middle, and then you're breaking it down into your attacking and defending organization, your transitional states between each of those attacking and defending states, and then also the set pieces, how you're breaking that down. A further example of research applied to this could be, again, when you're looking through winning in your context, you may be thinking about things like, okay, well, what styles of play are common in football today, and where do we sit within that? Now, an example I'm showing on the page here is from 2008 to recent times across a sample of maybe 6 or 7 competitions worldwide. And then we're also looking at a benchmark of the average of 60% possession per game. And what you can see in 2008-9, there was only 3 teams that were really doing that on a regular basis. As we get through the years, and certainly in the more recent years, there's far more teams now playing this more style of play. Now, it's not to say position-based football is the way to play, because it is not. That's always got to be down to you and your organization and what you feel is the best choice, and again, linked to your vision and philosophy. But it's just to show you how data can be used to track some trends. And as we go into that a little deeper, here's an example from our data as a service work where we can look at playing styles specifically over a certain season. So again, the sample size is shown on the top right-hand side here, and we've created 2 indexes. The first index is a combination of expected goals, passing tempo, progressive passes, and attacks with shots, and we call that our attacking index. And the defending index is made up of passes per defensive action, challenge intensity, recoveries high up the field, and then recoveries total. And then we've done a rank percentile to then drop in all the teams here and then plot each of those teams. And in the top right-hand side, I've just labeled some of the teams that appear there. So what you can start to see here, again, once you see all the names on here, is as you as an organization, first of all, you can plot yourself onto something like this, like where are you performing? But then you can also use that to try and understand and take inspiration from those teams that you want to either aspire towards being or learn from, particularly from the individual coaches and what they're doing. This is a great way of identifying those teams that are playing a similar style to you and you can learn from in terms of their tactical evolutions. And these can also be used for certain things like lone player pathways. So that's obviously a huge part in global football. And what's important here is to identify teams that, again, playing a similar style to you so that you can build strong relationships with them and then ultimately look for opportunities to loan some of your talent to them and use it as a value creation pathway. So again, using data can be incredibly important and powerful to help you target where to make investments and decisions. As we then go a layer deeper and go into the players, again, it can look something like this. So every single position on the field in this case with global football, we're essentially then breaking that down into a set of tactical elements, which is described here by the attacking and defending, and then technical, physical, and mental. So the classic 4-corner model would be represented here. And again, what's important about creating this is, first of all, understanding the positions on the field, understanding the variations as well. So in this example, we are showing a 9A and a 9B. So a 9A could be a more striker that will run in behind, maybe shorter, quicker. whereas a 9B could be more of your taller, stronger, target type player who's going to maybe come to the ball a little bit more. So again, depending on the deployment of your tactics, you may have not just the 11 positions, but maybe 12, 13, 14, 15 actual positions that you're actually recruiting for. And why is this very important? Because it becomes the absolute foundation for once you go through squad planning and all these other processes, it helps you identify and then brief the key people around you what it is we're looking for. And then last but not least, within the game model concepts here is the training. Of course, at Hudl, we've invested heavily into human performance now with our acquisition of RealTrack and the WinMU technology. And essentially, from a training perspective, you're looking at three main concepts. First is the philosophy. How connected is the game itself within your training methodology? Often one of the big trends today is to think about the tactical element first and then build in the rest of the elements around it. So indexing slightly more towards the tactical, but get the physical and the mental and the technical components built within those training methods rather than using them as separate elements. The next is the planning part. So again, once you know your season cadence of fixtures, you can start to plan out certain elements around training. When will you train? When will you rest? And you can plan that out across the whole season using methodologies like tactical periodization. And then the last but not least on the third column here is the implementation. So how you're implementing that, what does your weekly cycle look like? How well is that communicated within your staff? When are you meeting to plan that? And then make your tweaks along the way in terms of availability of players and also changes in terms of the way the team is performing. So these things are absolutely critical. So you've got your vision and philosophy, you've got your game you want to play, you've got your players you needed to play that game, and then last but not least is the training methods that you need. And these are key fundamentals, foundational elements to building successful high performance. Now, once you've got all that in place, you can start to get into the next level, which is to bring those things to life. So, for example, here in the recruitment space, you could be doing things like squad planning. And again, using things like we've created with data as a service here at Hudl to help you map out and visualize where your team is, where you potentially have some gaps, where you have players coming to end of contract, all those processes that you would go through. And this would be foundational to then creating your recruitment brief that would then go into the processes that you would go through your long and short listing, through sharing that to your scouts, your data-led scouts, your agents, intermediaries, to input into options for you in terms of investment into the team. And of course, looking and reviewing your own youth academy and where those players can be useful in terms of the squad development. That could then lead into another part of data as a service or a concept that you would use in anyway is your player search. So how do you go from hundreds of thousands of potential players down to a short list that can be available to you? So in this example with data as a service, we have more than 108,000 players worldwide from 2015 available in the database. And we can apply those custom indexes that relate to your style of play, again, link back to the game model and individual player profiles, and bring those to life through data to help you search much quicker for potential players that could be useful to you in terms of a recruitment process. So again, linking back to the insight and the time efficiencies made, these tools are built to do just that. That can also help you as you go a step further and you start to identify your talent. You can also then think about, well, how do I pitch this to key decision makers, to the board, to the CEO, etc., whoever's making those final decisions, of course, with the head coach involved and the head of recruitment. So these could include video summaries, biographical data, contractual structure, an assessment maybe of risk, which is a combination of objective and subjective feedback from various stakeholders, estimated return on investment in terms of, based on game time that you're estimating that they're going to achieve over a period of time. And then if it's applicable, things like the GBE score. That process then goes hand in hand into the next stage. Once you've got to point of decision and you've made a recruitment decision and you're going to sign that player, he or her would then be take the base of that information and then use that to create the individual development plan. And this is then used to monitor the games program, if they're on loan, monitor their development pathway, and then ultimately focus on that tactical, technical, physical, and mental social components of their development, and use this to build strong relationships with the players, keep them on board, keep them believing in the vision and philosophy overall, and help you to achieve high performance. And then a key part of this is to think about, well, how do we educate our organization? So it's great to have all those things in place that I've just covered, but ultimately you've got to really focus about that conversion and getting people to understand the why, but then also think about, how do I live this every day? How do I believe in it? How do I breathe it every single day? And one component of that is to use something like an LMS, like we have with the Hudl Academy, to create your version of your game model and your individual profiles, and use that to educate. Use it as an education tool to educate the staff you already have in the building. Also use it as an onboarding when you're hiring new staff, and use it as a regular point of contact so that you can make sure that you're creating a positive environment to think about who we are, where we're going, why we exist in the first place, and then what does that mean in terms of practical elements we're going to go and implement, changes we're going to make, investments we're going to make. So these are key parts of the process. It's not just about creating it and making it look good on a piece of paper, but the conversion into actually making it live is absolutely critical. And things like Hudl Academy and LMSs can be part of that process, combined with in-person meetings, bringing people together, getting people to debate things, presenting them evidence along the way in terms of how you're performing. These are all key factors into making high-performance workflows truly successful. So at Hudl, we've got a 2025 vision to capture and bring value to every moment in sports. This is done through a combination of our Pro Suite investments into technologies that cover these areas, particularly in global football. Then combined with our Pro Services, which are designed to listen, advise you, make impact, and then also learn. They are done through these main 4 services, and data as a service is one thing that we highlighted today in this presentation. And ultimately, whether you're a sporting director, whether you are head coach, analyst, working in scouting recruitment, working in now sports science, or indeed a player, we've very much got you covered. Big thanks to our strategic partners. It's another part of our investment here at Hudl. This helps us stay close to what matters in combination with our daily work, working with high performance workflow practitioners and leaders all over the world. So big thanks to the Association of Sporting Directors, the League Managers Association, the Training Ground Guru, and the Coach's Voice for continued relationship. And we hope to continue to build on those in the future. My name's Ed Sully. Big thank you for listening today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the High Performance Workflow series.